Good morning, everybody. My name is Mary Hixson, and I am the FCS Extension Agent over in Garrard County, Kentucky. And I welcome you to this morning's lesson on your best brain. We're here to learn all about your what you can do to keep your best brain as we all age, no matter what age you are. So a few logistics first. I would like to ask everybody to mute themselves so that we're not hearing echo. If you will do that for me. And also, if you have a question during this program, feel free to type it into chat. And we're glad to have some persons watching my chat for me and continuing to admit people. So we'll try to answer those questions after we get started. Okay, so today we are talking about your best brain, and I sent out a little survey to those that were registered ahead of time, and I got about 50% response and got some ideas about what's going on. We know what it takes to stay healthy and take care of our best brain, okay? But today's lesson is on just focusing on those things that we need to think about. But these are everyday things that we've all heard about and we all know about. You should have, or you'll have access to a handout that has everything I'm talking about today will be on this handout. It looks like this, if those of you that do not have a copy in front of you. And then I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint and we're going to go from there. And so on the PowerPoint, I have included everything that is in the handout, plus a few extras. So those of you that are in county offices, if they've made copies for you, that will be great. You can take some notes, but everything is on the handout that we're giving out. This is the lesson for your November Homemaker Club meetings. Those of you that are not Homemaker members, this is just a fun lesson to learn about how to keep your best brain. Okay, so I'm going to go to a PowerPoint presentation. If there's not any questions right now, I think we're all ready to go. I again want to thank you for coming out today for this program. Oops. I will be sharing my screen. Okay, if somebody could let me know that they're seeing this.
There is a little lag in it popping up for us, so.
Okay.
Right now, Mary, at least in Lincoln, I'm still seeing your side panel rather than the slideshow. There you go. That looks great.
So everybody is seeing it now. And remember, I can't see you, so you're going to have to tell me.
And Mary, if we can see it, it is in presenters mode. So if you want to go up to the top where it says display settings, do you see that? And it has a drop down arrow to
Yes.
the right. Display settings, if you'll click that, and you can change the view so we don't see the presenter view.
I don't see that card.
So go over to display settings on the top.
Do you see that up at the very top?
In between show taskbar and in slideshow to the left. One more. One more to the right.
To the right.
One more.
Don't see what y'all are talking about. So
See where it says display settings?
I know you guys are seeing that. I am not seeing that.
It's okay. It's okay. We can roll through it.
Interesting.
It'll still work.
Yes, hit hide presenter view. If you'll go one more up, yeah, right there.
See,
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, I can search around and find things. Okay, so this is Your Best Brain. And I want to welcome everybody here to Garrard County, as well as everybody else around the area. And my name is Mary Hixson, and I'm the Family Consumer Science Agent over in Garrard County. So hi, and we're going to start our PowerPoint presentation now. And again, if you have questions through this, feel free to type them in the chat, and we're going to go from here. So our objectives today is to review how the brain works. Okay, we're going to spend just a few minutes on that. Understand what can contribute to the best brain functioning and what activities will delay cognitive decline, because that's what we all really want to do, right? Is delay that cognitive decline. So what do you get when you cross Bambi with a ghost? You get bamboo. Your brain. It has the texture of firm jelly, but is one of the most powerful of all our human organs, okay? The main parts of the brain are the cerebrum. Its function is to problem solve, remember, to think, and to feel. That's what it takes care of. Our cerebellum, it controls coordination and balance. And then we have the brain stem, and this connects the brain to the spinal cord. It controls automatic functions such as breathing, digestion, heart rate, and blood pressure. The cortex. When we see pictures of brains, we see that thinking wrinkles surface of the cerebrum. So this is the specific regions of the cortex. They have been linked to certain functions, such as interpreting sensations, sights, sounds, and smells, generating thoughts and solve problems, forming and storing memories, controlling voluntary movement. And if you see my picture there, this is the part of the brain that helps us make money. So we have left brain and right brain. The left half controls the movement on the right side of the body, and the right half controls the movement on the left side of the body. In most people, the language area is located on the left side of the brain. What is a haunted chicken? It's a poltergeist. Get it? Neurons or nerve cells. The average, and you guys can read along, but the average adult brain has 100 billion neurons that connect over 100 trillion points. And it's called the neuron forest due to its density, okay? There's a lot of them. There's a lot going on. Signals that travel, connect through the forest, form the basis of memories, thoughts, and feelings. Neurons are the main type of cell destroyed by Alzheimer's disease. So when you hear about that, that's what they're talking about. The brain activity from our experiences creates patterns that code our thoughts, memories, skills, and the sense of who we are. The brain activity is associated with reading words, hearing words, thinking about words, and saying words. Why did the monster eat a light bulb? He was in need of a light snack. Get it? How do we have our best brain? So that's what our lesson is really about today. How do we have our best brain? Do you all see a theme to my slides? Okay. Exercise, and we don't really want to hear that, do we? But exercise, being active. Physical activity enhances the mind and increases blood flow to the brain. So when we work out, or when we're doing some sort of exercise or physical activity, that increases that blood flow to the brain, which is really good for us. Older adults who exercise for 15 minutes at least 3 times a week may reduce their risk for dementia by about 1/3. And you know, folks, it doesn't take a whole lot to actively go toward this. You know, just any amount of increase in activity can help a lot. In Kentucky, about 76% of adults aged 55 to 64 report inactivity. Do we think that that number might go up the older we get in Kentucky? It probably does. A recent study reported that loss of muscle and strength are not associated with age, but with the lack of exercise. So what makes us, as we get older, reject or don't feel like we want to exercise as much or go for that walk or to do that activity or play ball or whatever it might be. So as we get older, what is it that keeps us from doing those things? So something to think about as we continue on. Make movement, activity, exercise a part of your lifestyle, whatever your age. So just moving around a little bit can help us tremendously. Okay. Choose healthy eating habits. Now, we have an entire lesson on nourishing your brain, and we've had that lesson in the past. So if you're interested in those handouts and that information specifically, you can ask your extension office for that previous lesson materials. There's certainly a lot of information out there about choosing healthy eating habits. A healthy heart is the same, and the way we eat for a healthy heart creates a healthy brain. So if you kind of think like that, then it helps you to know what you should be eating. But some of the things that we think of specifically to help us in brain power and to keep our brain going really good are what you see up on the screen. So try to include 5 to 9 servings per day of fruits and vegetables. Okay, that means fruits, and you can see that all the berries are listed there. We think of blueberries, we hear a lot about blueberries, but any berries are good to be eating on a regular basis. Plums and prunes, cherries, oranges, all of those things are good brain power. Vegetables, we think of broccoli, spinach, kale. I like this list because the first 4 things are 4 things that I really like. Corn, beets, eggplant, red bell peppers, Brussels sprouts, alfalfa sprouts. And again, those vegetables specifically are good for our brain. And we have lots of recipes at the extension office that have and directly have these vegetables in them. So certainly look for those recipes. Plated up recipes, we are all familiar with those, right? Plenty of fiber. You get this free with your fruits and vegetables, but don't forget your whole grain breads, your cereals, and your beans as well. Don't forget the dairy. I think as we age, we tend not to drink as much dairy. We may not like milk, or we may not think about drinking milk, but it's still very important as we age to get that dairy in our diet. Low-fat dairy products provide excellent sources of calcium. You don't have to drink whole milk or 2% milk. You can drink low-fat products, and you can also include low-fat dairy products in your cooking. Practice portion control. Learn what one serving looks like, okay? When we eat, we tend to eat more than we need to eat, okay? And so we need to think about what portion control is, think about that, but then also learn what a portion looks like as we're eating it. How much rice is a portion? And then what does it look like? You know, it's all well and good that I tell you that, well, you need to eat 1/4 of a cup of rice or grains, but what does that look like? You know, how much is that on the plate? So get familiar with how much portions look like, and which will make it easier for you to practice portion control. So these are healthy eating habits. Why are monsters covered in wrinkles? Have you ever tried to iron a monster? Okay, so my audience here is really getting this. Another way that we want to keep our brain power and work on our having our best brain is to be social. That means connecting with others. Be a volunteer, belong to a club. How about belonging to an extension homemaker club? Belong to organizations, teach classes such as crafts, maybe Sunday school class, maybe at the extension office you could go in and teach a class. Play chess, cards, or games. Of course, you have to have people, other people. It helps to have other people to play those games. So think about that the next time you're with a group of people. Stay socially active. Think of activities you can participate with others. Start or join a book club. And book clubs have been very popular during our shutdown because it's something that you could do via computer by Zoom, and you didn't have to be in person. So, but it's better to be in person, obviously, to see other people and be able to talk. but book clubs are a great way to be social and connect with others as you're all reading the same book, or maybe you're sharing books. There's different ways to do book clubs. And then, of course, take classes. And if you're here today, you're taking this class, and hopefully you do that with other things as well. Keeping social. Stay up on current events. Learn the tech. And I know, you know, when we say learn the tech, we may not want to do it, okay? But learning tech keeps us active, keeps our brains active. And we can connect this to being socially active because you're staying up on current events. Maybe you're attending things, participating in activities in your community, and then learning something new. Anything you learn, it's the best activity for the brain when we learn something new. That means that we have to think. That means that we have to use our brain power, which makes those connections in our brain. And of course, staying up with the times means that we need to learn the tech. You know, I just yesterday had people in here for a group, and one of the ladies had a new iPhone, or no, hers was not an iPhone. It was a different kind of phone. And so we went through the process of teaching her how to text and also how to add contacts into her phone list, because she had not yet learned that and picked it up. And, you know, it doesn't do any good for you to hand your phone to me and for me to do it for you. I need to show you how to do it, you know, if you're learning those new things. And that's what she had happen to her. She'd had the phone for about a month, but every time she said something, somebody would take it out of her hand and do it for her. Well, that's not teaching her. She's not learning a new skill. So you have to actually teach a person, and you have to be willing to learn. And so what are some things that you want to learn? You know, as we go through this lesson, think about things that you might personally want to learn about. Maybe you want to take a class. Maybe you want to sign up for a university class even, or an online program, and continue learning. Relieve your stress. Now, my picture there, she's pretty stressed out. So chronic stress has a direct effect on the brain. Elevations in what we call cortisol. It's a flight or fight hormone. During stressful periods can damage cells to in one of the brain's memory centers, the hippocampus. Probably I'm not pronouncing it right. But elevated cortisol can also halt production with any of new hippocampal neurons that help commit facts to memory. So stress is not good for us in a lot of ways. Physically, we know stress, high stress is not good for us, but maybe we don't think so much about the damage we're doing to our brain when we're always in stressful situations and we don't take care of eliminating that stress. So understand what causes stress and eliminate or modify stressful situations. Try to control reactions to stress and do things that promote inner peace. And what are some of the things that you can do to give inner peace and work to de-stress you? I can think personally, I like to sew, and that's the most creative thing I do. And that's my happy place when I'm sewing and creating. It is also a stress reduction, right? Because I'm happy when I'm doing it, and it creates that de-stressing inner peace feeling. I also do a lot of other hand work, such as knitting and crocheting and things like that. I was knitting just last night. Again, very stress reducing for me to do those things. Maybe it's a walk outside in nature that is the best thing for you. I've had people tell me that they love mowing the yard. That is a de-stressor for them in the summertime, because they just like that mowing the yard, you know, running around on those machines and doing that. And I can understand that. That is their de-stressor. So what are some of the things that give you inner peace and de-stress you? So be thinking about that. Help your sensory abilities. You know, it doesn't do any good for us to think about keeping our best brain if we can't see and we can't hear. Those things are very important. So have your eyes and your hearing checked periodically. Keep your prescriptions current and up to date. If you need new eyeglasses or contacts, certainly go ahead and take care of those things. It makes it really hard to stay up on current events and active socially if we have trouble hearing or seeing. So take care of those things. Light up your life. Natural or full spectrum light helps the brain function at its best. It combats fatigue, and for many people eases depression. You know, we think about the winter blues. That's how that terminology started, is the fact that we don't get a lot of sunlight, natural sunlight in the winter, perhaps because we are indoors and we don't seek out the winter sunshine. So people get depressed, you know, they feel it and actually have a physical reaction to it. So we know that natural light is good for us and we need to have natural light. That doesn't mean laying in the sun. That just means that we need to make sure that we are getting sunlight. And if you have places in your home which allow you to let light in, even in the winter months, that we need to take advantage of that. Is TV bad for you? This is an age-old question. We've batted this around for quite a while about TV. You hear a lot about it in the news. Whether or not TV is bad for younger people. Well, it can be bad for us older folks as well. Brain waves of someone watching TV is similar to those of someone sleeping. So think about that. So what do we need to do to combat that? Because we're all going to watch TV, right? We're going to have those opportunities and those needs to have TV. So we want to watch more laugh out loud programming. And if you've had your favorite comedies in the past, and we certainly have rerun TV now, so you can almost find anything, but perhaps there was a funny show that you know is funny and that you really enjoyed. I know that every time I catch an episode of Andy Griffith, or Mayberry, I guess later it was called Mayberry, I have laugh out loud moments watching that show because it's so good. It was so well written. It was well written in its time, and it still holds up to today's times. So, so find something that makes you laugh out loud and enjoy those type of programs, and don't feel guilty about it because you're watching something that's 50 years old. That's fine. Watch more game shows where you try to answer first. We know that when we stimulate our brain, we do brain exercises like playing cards or fixing puzzles and so forth. That's really good for us. Well, it also is good if we're watching game shows that stimulate that same brain activity of fixing puzzles or figuring out puzzles. So watch more game shows where you try to answer first, okay? And that may be why. What are those 7 o'clock programs? It's Jeopardy, and the other one is the word game, Wheel of Fortune. Okay, that's why they're so popular for people to watch, and a lot of people watch them, and they probably do it for the entertainment factor, but we know that it actually is good for us to watch those types of game shows. Watch those feel-good, sappy holiday movies, which right now, apparently, there are a lot of on TV. And so these are feel-good movies that make us feel good when we're watching them. They give us happy feelings. They also have those crying moments, I've noticed. But that's good for us. And again, this is good for our brains to watch those type of programs as opposed to other type of programming. And then watch the news, but be careful when you're watching the news. I find the news makes me very stressed out sometimes. So we do have to be careful, but we want to stay current. We want to stay up on our current events and know what's going on in the world. Maintain a positive attitude and cultivate an attitude of gratitude. Happiness is a good thing, okay? Happiness enhances alertness and the ability to receive new information. Optimistic people tend to live longer. Would you have guessed that? A thankful attitude encourages physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So that attitude of gratitude, being thankful, being happy in your place, happy where you are. A thankful attitude promotes balanced optimism and an openness to opportunities and enhancement of general well-being, which all of those things help you in the things that we've previously talked about, right? If you're not optimistic, if you're not open to opportunities, then perhaps you're not open to those social engagements or to physical activity, learning something new. So a thankful attitude promotes all of those and promotes a general well-being, which allows us to do some of these other things when we're talking about our best brain. And see my skeleton, he's pretty happy. Get plenty of sleep. A regular loss of an hour or two of needed sleep can impair your brain function. We say 8 hours of sleep a night. We all probably know people that say, well, I don't get 8 hours, I don't need 8 hours of sleep a night. That may be their interpretation of that, okay? We never catch up on sleep. I used to think that when I was working summer camp one year, 4-H camp, I was on staff, and I swear literally there was no sleeping during the week, or very little sleeping during the week. And then when I would get home on the weekend, come in on Friday afternoon, put in some laundry, and I basically would crash the weekend. And we would say that, well, she's catching up on sleep. You know, I didn't get sleep all week. Well, I probably wasn't catching up on my sleep. What I was catching up on was letting my body rest and inactivity in my body. You don't ever catch up sleep that you lose, okay? And we all need our 8 hours of sleep. It makes us a healthier person. And yes, we know that that's hard to get sometimes. What can keep us from getting our 8 hours? Well, medicines that we take, if we're in pain, if it hurts to be, you know, in a laying prone position, you know, moving around during the night, pain can certainly keep us from sleeping. Inactivity, you know, I don't like being inactive during the day, because I know that that's going to affect how I sleep that night, you know. So we always need to keep active during the day. You know, you think about those toddlers and that old adage, you know, run them out during the day, let them play really hard, because you know they're going to sleep really good later, right? So that works for us as well. So inactivity keeps us from sleeping if we don't have much activity during our day. Eating too much. How many of us do that? You know, we eat too much at mealtime, and then on down there we see snacking after dinner. Maybe sometimes we snack. So eating too much food can keep us from having a good night's sleep as well, and getting to sleep. I know I feel that if I've gone out to dinner and have a really good dinner, certain foods keep us awake, right? We know that caffeine can affect us. Well, there's caffeine in foods. There's, you know, we can think about that chocolate, you know, and some other things that there's caffeine in, and that can keep us awake. Maybe there's certain foods that affect you, you know, affect your stomach and your gastrointestinal system. And those things can keep you awake as well. Caffeine or alcohol, obviously, can keep us awake. Sometimes our bedmate, and that's why we have the picture there, can keep us awake. If your bedmate is tossing and turning all night long, maybe that's keeping you awake as well. Get in some aerobic and other physical activity every day. That will help with your sleeping pattern, and avoid snacking after dinner, and go to bed at a regular time. You know, we teach kids, and we want our children to go to bed at a regular time, right? Because we always say, well, you know, you have to go to bed this time because we have to get up at a certain time to get off to school, right? So adults, we sort of tend to forget that when we're young adults, but we need to keep that regular bedtime. And I know I'm really bad about that. I can, you know, I can stay up pretty late sometimes, and then I get off my schedule. We call it getting off our schedule, and that does affect our sleep and our sleep patterns. Okay. Expect your memory to stay sharp. It's a cultural thing, okay, for us to think that we're going to decline with age. I'll admit, I have never had a good memory for remembering people's names. I remember your own names. I've never been able to remember people's names and had an excellent time at that. I know people that are really good at that, and I'm always amazed. So as I get older, that's not something that's going to change. You know, you can't, when people say that they can't remember things and they may be in their 60s, 70s, you know, you always ask, well, could you ever remember things? I mean, were you ever good at that? You know, that's maybe not going to get better as we get older, but we also have to remember that it's not an automatic thing that we lose our memory. Okay. In cultures where the perception of declining memory with age does not exist, older people perform as well as young subjects in memory tests. Okay. So it's like that, that expectation thing. So we expect maybe to act a certain way or to do certain things, and then it happens because we have that expectation. If people expect their memories to get worse with age, they may stop trying so hard to remember. There are things that we do when we're trying to remember something and little triggers. So we're gonna go into that a little bit. Find activities that require your use of your memory. This builds reserves of brain cells and connections. Do you all remember, it was a card game that you played, and you laid out all the cards, and then you picked the card. What was that called? Concentration was what it was called, right? So you, as a child, you would play these games where you would pick up a card and then you would try to find the matching card, right? As long as there were a lot of cards there and nobody had played yet, it was hard to do. But as the game progresses and all the cards get turned over, that is a memory. Oh, that's right. That card was up here in the corner. And we used to do that when we were younger or when you play cards, but we forget to do these things when we're older. Well, we still need to do those memory games, and we need to do things that require our memory, okay? Hence reading a book or watching the news and telling somebody about it later. So doing things that require memory builds those brain cells, those reserves of brain cells, and makes those connections. So what are some activities to add to your days? And maybe you already do some of these things. So think about this as we go through the list. Do you do any of these things? Do you still write letters? Do you send, today's letters are emails, notes, or cards? As an extension agent, I try to write notes and cards. I think about thank you notes and cards a lot. But do we still do that? Do you still send cards? Do your birthday cards or cards to friends, maybe sympathy cards, whatever it might be. Do you still write letters to somebody? Keep a journal. Write down what's going on every day. Read out loud and listen to books on tape. When we're reading, when we read to ourselves and we're not saying anything out loud, that's a whole different brain activity than if you read something and you're actually reading it out loud. So switch it up. And those of you that live by yourself, you may read out loud. I know I read out loud when I was taking classes and back in school, and there were things that I needed to learn. I would read them out loud because I can learn auditory. We all learn different ways. Auditory was one of those, that's one of your senses ways that you learn. And I tend to learn when I hear things. So I would read stuff out loud just to myself. And I still do that. It requires a different brain activity than when you are just reading to yourself, sitting quietly in a corner. So think about that next time you're reading your favorite book or even the newspaper. And then listening to books on tape, again, requires another whole set of brain cells and connections. So a lot of ways that we can read and build our brain cells. Draw or paint. And how many of you doodle when you sit down with a pen or have pencils or something and you doodle or draw or paint? This is good for our brains to do this. Play a musical instrument. I get so frustrated when I know older people that have got instruments, and when I say older people my age, that they have musical instruments in the house and they used to play, but they don't play anymore. Well, that's really good for our brains to keep up that activity. Work jigsaw puzzles. I love doing that. Knit, crochet, quilt. Quilting requires a lot of brain cells, math skills, as well as physical abilities. You're using your brain to pick out colors, all kinds of things. Crafts in general, maybe quilting, sewing, all that is not your thing. But there are different kinds of crafts out there. Building things. This is really good for our brains. Crossword puzzles, of course, that's on there. That's always listed as a good brain activity to do crossword puzzles. I've never been fond of crossword puzzles, but I hope some of you are. And then you can see there dancing. Dancing is really good for our brain as well. Inject novelty into everyday tasks. Now, what does this mean? Well, this is switching it up, okay? This forces your brain to use new pathways. And remember that the network of neurons is just a whole bunch of different pathways. So we want to create new pathways, right? So have you ever tried to brush your teeth with the other hand? Well, if you've broken your arm, you've tried to do that. You've had to do that. Use the computer mouse with your less dominant hand on the other side of the computer. That I have not attempted, but that would be a neat one to do. Button your shirt with the opposite hand. Do things with the other hand, like what you do ordinarily with your right hand or left hand if you're dominantly left. Switch it up and use the other hand. Change the scenery, rearrange the furniture or cupboards. Have you ever moved something that was sat somewhere for a really, really long time in your house? I've recently done that, and it's actually the tissue box. I'm having work done on my house, and the tissue box has sat in a specific place in the bathroom for probably, I don't know, Adela, 20 years. 20 years. In order to have the work done, tiling, I moved all of that, and I moved the tissue box down the hall and actually sitting in the hallway on a surface. And that, boy, you talk about discombobulating you, that can really mess you up when you've had something in the same place for a long, long time, and then it's not there anymore. For several days, well, actually, you continue to go back to that place where it was, right? So you have to think, well, what did I do with the tissue box? So then you have to go find your tissue box. So doing that, moving around things in the house is a really, really good memory exercise for you. Hand signals, learn to spell using the manual alphabet. Some of us know a little bit about this, but again, that exercises our brain and a different part of our brain cells and creates those new pathways. Blindfold game. Try familiar activities with your eyes closed, like sorting change. Can you think of other things that you can do with your eyes closed? That maybe there's some things in the kitchen that you can do. I once had my niece, I was just playing a game with her, but I had her close her eyes and put the silverware on the table. I was trying to teach her how to set the table. And so I told her to close her eyes and to set the table, put all the pieces in place. And so it was a fun thing to do with her. But as you think about these activities, familiar as they are, closing your eyes makes them a whole new activity. Use sense and sense of smell. The smell is the only sense that connects to a specific part of the brain, which involves processing emotions and storing memories. How many of you can smell a scent and immediately take you back to something in your past or take you to a place? And it happens to me every time. It's a certain smell, and it's a smell, and my friend who's sitting here, we talk about this. It's a certain smell of cigarette smoke and fried food and people and fresh air and maybe some engine smells. And naming all those things, can you guess what I'm talking about? I'm talking about being at a fair, a county fair. I've been going to county fairs since I was a child, and it's that smell. It's a certain smell, and it takes me, if I smell it anywhere during the year or somewhere, it immediately takes me back to being at the fair. And it's definitely a certain smell. So maybe there's certain smells in your life that immediately transport you to a different time or a different place, and you remember immediately what it is. Play the smell game in your club meetings. This is the Homemaker Leader lesson. Some of you will be teaching it to your club members when you have your meeting in November. The smell game, well, that could be kind of icky, but the smell game is where you would have a scent, okay, and you have closed eyes, you put blindfolded the person, and you have scents, and people try to guess what the scents are or where they came from. That's one way to play the game. A different way to play the game is if you have a scent and you ask people to recall when they last smelled that scent or where they smelled that scent, have them associate it with a memory from their past. And if you don't want to have the scent, you can certainly describe the scent to somebody and have people describe what that scent means to them or when the last time that was that they smelled that scent. Okay. So again, the sense of smelling is very, very strong, and it can recall memories almost immediately. So we are getting older. We're having a hard time remembering things. We think that we are losing our memory, right? That's not necessarily true. We just maybe don't try as hard as we used to remember things. And the Alzheimer's Association, this is a good time to point out that they have all kinds of programs and information about memory and recalling memory. And also what you need to worry about when you can't remember, okay? We don't always need to just immediately worry or assume, oh, I'm losing my memory, I must be declining. That's not necessarily true. We need to work at it. You know, it would be one thing for you to walk into the room and you had a purpose, but when you got to the room, let's say you walked in the kitchen, you couldn't remember, why did you go in the kitchen, you know? Why did I go in the kitchen? They're laughing. Okay. Well, it's one thing for you to just say, well, forget it. I don't remember why I came in the kitchen. What you need to do, though, is stand there and make yourself recall why you walked into the kitchen. Okay. That is the exercise part of this. This exercises our brain, you know, because you will recall why you walked into the kitchen. Remember in the previous slides, I talked about maybe we lose our memory and some of our memory because we don't try as hard to remember. So it's important that we keep on putting forth an effort to remember. So how do we do this? Well, put forth the effort, eliminate distractions, focus your attention. You know, okay, I've come into the kitchen, focus on what I'm doing right then. Relate it to something you already know. Okay, I walked into the kitchen. What's in the kitchen? Well, there's food in the kitchen. There's dishes in the kitchen. There's, maybe something else in the kitchen, but, you know, relate it to something you already know these things, right? So if you were in the other room, you walked into the kitchen, maybe there's a reason and it had to do with food. Okay, I came to get some snacks, right? Organize information. So organize in your brain, write down the main points. If you can't remember something, link your main points together, relax, take your time, be patient, plan, use external aids to assist your recall, and practice recalling information. That last one there, practice recalling information. We probably don't do that the way, you know, we should. Think about things from the past. We do that when we're telling a story, maybe, or we're remembering with relatives, or maybe you're at the high school reunion and you're remembering with classmates. We do it then, but we don't maybe do it every day or practice recalling incidences and memories from the past like we should. And that is very important. Sometimes just write down those good stories. Write down the family history. So all of that works our brains and creates those pathways. We have this happen in our office a lot. One of us will say, well, I had that piece of paper, but what did I do with that piece of paper? Or I laid down a file. This happened just yesterday evening, actually, with my coworker. Had the file, and he knows the file is somewhere in the room, but he can't find it right now. So you go through, there's certain processes that you go through, right, to find that file, to look for that file. And that is all good exercise for our brains when we do that. And of course, at work, we think, well, that's easy because at work, I've got to find that file. You know, there's a motivation to find that file. If you're at your house and you're not doing a work situation, you may just give up or think, well, I'll think of it later. Well, that's really the opposite of what you ought to do. You need to take the time to make yourself think about what you did it, where you put it, and so forth. Okay, so what are your helpers to remember things? Well, we all use them. We all have notepads, we make lists. I love a good list. Calendars, of course, timers, computers to tell us things, friends who remind us of things, right? And then there's that habit. Remember that tissue box in my house? That is a habit. That was a habit where it was. And for several years, it sat in the same place. So when I switch that up, all of a sudden, I'm going to have to remember, I have to create a new pathway to remember every time I reach for tissue or need one, I moved it. You know, it's not in the same place anymore. So what are some of your helpers to help you remember things? You know, maybe you make a list on the refrigerator or you post things or post notes. A friend of mine, she's got all of her notes in her phone you know, she has all her notes and her reminders, the things that she needs to do are on her phone. So she just pulls it up. Well, that's really good. But and I can't see that over there. So she has these reminders on her phone about all the things that she's supposed to do. Well, I think that's really good, but she also has a very bad memory. And so there's things that she probably needs to do some of these things that we've talked about today to increase her memory skills. More helps. Sorry. More helps. Be organized. Less memory is needed when everything has a place and everything is in its place. And we talk about organization and decluttering a lot in some of our programs, and we've had decluttering programs. So when you work on decluttering your home and having everything in its place, that is helpful to our memories and helps us remember things. Have designated places for certain items like your car keys, your checkbook, your glasses, remotes. Also remember where you put those pumpkins and those crows, etc. What kind of mistakes do ghosts make? They make boo-boos. Remember, mental activity keeps the mind sharp and agile. If you don't use it, you lose it. And the other thing I hope that you saw was incorporated into today's lesson that helps us keep our mind sharp and to have our best brain is to have a sense of humor and find humor in all manner of things going on during the day. And keep your sense of humor, okay? That keeps us sharp as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. That ends our PowerPoint. And we'll get out of the PowerPoint and we'll stop sharing. And I'm going to ask my coworkers if there were any questions during that time and if anybody has any questions. Sounds like we had.
I
Good
don't see,
Yes.
Mary, I don't see anything in the chat box.
Okay, and I'm going to ask Alethea to stop recording.